All right, we're back. Hopefully the settings are okay. So, this is my Twitch channel, which I'm going to mute so I don't need to hear my voice on a little delay. And on this channel, I'm going to read audiobooks because it's my job and I'm currently between books. And I want to keep doing it and practicing it. And ideally, just do this instead and just have fun rather than doing all the editing nonsense, you know? The problem is I'm like a major perfectionist. So I could hear there when I said the problem is there was like a sound between that and the next word, and I'd be editing that out if I was doing this for a contract. So the secondary reason for doing this is to hopefully make me a little more okay with I want to say mediocrity, but everybody says that, and like to be falsely modest, and I've noticed it, and now it annoys me when I do it, so I'm going to try to stop doing that. Anyway, this is called Eternal. It's from ChooseYourStory.com. It's apparently the most popular, free choose your own adventure that somebody made for the site, I think. And I always really liked choose your own adventure stuff when I was a kid, so I figured I would, try to do it now. I've noticed that you can't see me below the waist, and I get very warm while I'm narrating, so, use your imagination for what I just did. Still wearing boxers, at least. But that's all you get. All right, enough time wasting. For a second I got excited because I saw there were 2 viewers, and then I realized it's because of my iPad, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. Oh, would that help? I don't know, I got plenty of bandwidth. I'll leave it on for now. Maybe it'll help me see stuff too. All right, Chapter 1, Born to Kill. Year 0. Also, there's like no context for this, so I don't know what the voices are supposed to be. But they talk about empires and elves and stuff, so I'm going to assume, like, generic fantasy. Let's do it. Is this the one? Yeah, I guess. What do you mean, you guess? It either is or it isn't. I don't know, I lost the list. You what? That's just great. You realise how much we're going to get our asses chewed out because of your fuck-up? See? Oh, I would have gone back. Anyway, because of your fuck-up, I'm sick of paying for your mistakes. Will you calm down? How the hell are they going to know anyway? You've seen one ugly little baldy, you've seen them all. All babies look the same. Not the elven ones. Enough with your elf fetish. These babies are all under the care of the Empire anyway. They're here for the taking. Yeah, the key word being the Empire. You know we need the proper paperwork, which you just fucking lost. So what, I can forge it? You really worry too much. There's so much red tape they ain't gonna know the difference, and what does it matter? The Empire's getting a body for their purposes anyway. Yeah, but you know how they like it best. Got a burp. Where was I? How they like it best? How the fuck can they really tell it this age? They do all the real testing later. Look, he's got all his limbs, and he doesn't display any signs of impurity. I'd say he's a prime candidate for whatever they have in store for this poor little bastard. Yeah, I guess. Damn, I can't imagine what it's like being brought up like that. That's awful. Me either. This program has only been going on for a few years, but I've already heard some fucked up stories about it. You know, it's things like this that sometimes make me question the logic of our glorious leaders. Shh! Are you mad? Don't talk like that. It's not our place to question anything. We're just supposed to do our jobs. Besides, the logic is quite obvious. If they train people from birth, they'll have superior combat skills and utter loyalty to the Empire. That's my point, though. Is it really necessary? The Empire already produces so much propaganda that it does the job pretty well in producing loyal citizens. And if that doesn't work, it also instills so much fear in most that even if someone wanted to start a rebellion, it's highly unlikely they would. Don't be so sure. It has happened in the past. The past? When? Like 400 years ago, when the Empire was still in its own infancy? Wouldn't happen anymore. And as for having elite combat troops, again, what's the point? We've already got camps to train elite groups like the Shadow Guard, who are not to be fucked with, and we have more than enough resources to create an army of golems that would be just as loyal and kick the shit out of our enemies. Look, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Our superiors have their reasons, as does the Emperor. Let us just take this baby and be done with this task. The two clerks left the infirmary with you that day, whereupon you were accepted as a suitable candidate and put into the Eternal program. You don't remember too much during the time of your very young years, except that you are mostly confined to a room where all your basic needs are met. On a daily basis, a couple bigger people come in to check on you. They have you perform various physical tasks, as well as spending time to teach you things like basic reading and writing. Sometimes they ask you various questions and write down your responses, while other times they come in and stab you with painful needles with fluid in them. You don't like those times. You don't really understand it all, except that you know that the Emperor is always watching you. He is everywhere even if you don't see him. He is keeping an eye on your actions, and you must always obey his will lest you be punished. You know this to be true because you have this repeatedly told to you. Eventually, your relative isolation would come to an end. I'm not really sure what this question is asking. Years later, the Empire lies, the Empire truth, the Eternal program hope. I like hope. Let's see what that does. The Eternal program is the latest in the Empire's schemes to maintain their tenuous grip on power. It was set in motion about 30 years ago, and the concept is to create a group of completely loyal super soldiers. The premise is simple: take babies and turn them into killers from the crib. This sounds like a relatively easy task, given the resources of the Empire and its obsession with control. However, it has so far met with little success. First of all, simple brainwashing and training isn't enough, or at least not enough for whatever the end goals are. There's also some physical alteration involved through a bizarre mixture of magic and science, one of the few times advancements in the field are actually made and applied. So far, this has only resulted in a lot of dead babies. In fact, the first attempts were actually on pregnant women, but this usually just killed the mother along with the unborn fetus. The ones that have actually managed to make it through to toddlerhood usually don't survive the further alteration processes, or in some cases they don't pass the tests that are administered. Failure of these tests results in a lot of dead toddlers. If the subject can actually make it past toddlerhood, then the real training begins. This involves basic combat skills and the beginnings of psychological preparation. It's very harsh, even for a subject that has already been conditioned for this situation. So far, nobody has made it past the age of 8. Despite the repeated failures, the Empire is insistent on continuing with this project until it produces more successful results. The resources that have been spent so far would have been better spent on more traditional forms of control, security, and conquest. One can only surmise that this is probably an order from the Emperor himself, though why it is so important, nobody can say. Perhaps your class will be the first one. Perhaps your class will be the first one to succeed where so many of your predecessors have proven unfit. Back to the story. All right, so this is just like background. Oh, so these are the lies about the empire. So this is like the propaganda. The empire is the beacon of light in an otherwise barbaric land of darkness. It is the greatest civilization the world has ever seen and will ever see. Its territory and control continue to grow and one day will encompass the entire world. The past does not matter, for the empire has always existed and will continue to exist forever. As will the emperor continue to live forever to oversee its triumph over enemies that are jealous of its prosperity. He has guided the empire to victory countless times and will continue to do so in the future. Yes, the past does not matter, for the future belongs to the empire. As a citizen of the empire, it is up to you to serve without hesitation. That's the wrong word. Without question, and enjoy the gifts it offers. As a soldier, your privilege is even better, for there is no greater glory than to fight, kill, and even die for the empire. To do otherwise is the path of the dissident, the uncivilized, savage, and the mentally ill, all of whom are only fit to be hunted down and executed without hesitation. Yeah, I inserted that whom there, because I'm a grammar nerd. Serve loyally and you shall be rewarded. Refuse and you shall die. Remember, the emperor is always watching. He sees all and knows all. Love the empire, serve the emperor, obey. Back to the story. Well, let's learn the truth about the empire, you know. The empire has existed for around a half a millennium, give or take a decade. The history of it gets muddier the further back the one tries to search. In fact, it's pretty much impossible for anyone to do so that isn't high up in the power structure in some way, assuming anyone was inclined to do so. The empire has done a fairly good job of rewriting history as the years have gone on. For example, barely anyone knows that the empire was once called the Qualan Empire centuries ago, named after its province of origin, Quala. However, someone believed that eliminating the provincial part of the title made it sound more impressive and encompassing, so it became known as just the empire, and it's been known that way ever since. A similar situation arose with the names of various emperors. The idea of an unseen and unnamed emperor created a more mysterious and even ominous figure. So the emperor came about. However, given that the empire has existed for a very long time, and no emperor has ever been seen by the average citizen, or even by those in the upper echelons of the hierarchy for centuries, it is unknown how many emperors there actually have been. But the propaganda gives the impression of a single, undying emperor. Not many really question it, and most just believe themselves to be under the rule of a godlike entity. While there is no active worship involved, there is a great deal of loyalty and obedience drilled into the heads of most, so much that it almost becomes as fanatical as a religion, especially for those in the military. Conversely, any genuine religion that may pop up is frowned upon. If it isn't too intrusive, it will be tolerated, but openly revering any sort of gods over the emperor is generally not recommended. Rewriting history even extends to the conquered, perhaps even more so. The empire will always attempt to slowly erase any sort of culture the conquested may have had, until it gets to the point where the future generations know nothing of their true past. This is easier to do with human subjects, and it isn't surprising that humans make up most of the empire's population. However, there are smaller portions of non-humans that live under the empire's shadow. Non-humans usually aren't treated as equals and are regarded with suspicion most of the time. In fact, they are usually serving as slaves. However, even some non-humans can rise to a comfortable position, assuming they prove... let's just start that over. However, even some non-humans can rise to a comfortable position, assuming they prove themselves being of greater use to the empire, such as orcs, and their great strength and willingness to serve in the military. The entire truth of the empire may never be fully known as long as the current power structure lasts, but that has been becoming less of a certainty as the decades have gone on. While most in the core regions of the empire still believe their civilization to be in a golden age that will never end, the reality is a little closer to home to those on the outskirts of the empire. The empire has started to rot from the inside with incompetence, decadence, and outright self-harmful actions by some of those in power, and those that suffer the most are the average citizens. What's that sound like? Doubt in the empire has existed for a lot longer and is Doubt in the empire has existed for a lot longer and is more widespread than the empire would like anyone to believe. There have always been those of a rebellious mindset, whether they are conquered people that never truly assimilated, or just normal citizens that suspect there is something more to their lot in life. They are always there. And lately, they've been becoming more numerous and spreading like a plague in its first stages. That reminds me of something else, too. It doesn't help that the empire is overextended and has in recent years encountered a strong rival in the form of the Felkhan Kingdom, which is apparently a power on the rise, and even exceeding the empire in terms of advances in technology. An area in which gave... that's just bad. Okay. An area which gave the empire one of its greatest advantages, but now has started to lag like so many of its other former accomplishments. The empire currently still maintains its direct control, mostly by a pure show of might through their large military, magical guardians like golems, and their greatly feared, not-so-secret enforcers, the Shadow Guard. Still, even with these advantages, a need for something even greater is required to ensure the empire's dominance. A little redundant. A need is required. A requirement is needed. That something is a long shot, but if it is successful, then it will be an eternal solution to all the Empire's problems. That's the title of the book, Eternal. All right. Oh, goodness, I'm sweaty. Every time. Back to the story. Hey, we can move on. Years later. Year 5, many years later. Probably go till 2:45 or so, would be my guess for today. Year 5. You are sitting in a gray room at a desk with several other children of your age. All of you glance at each other a lot, and it is obvious that there is much curiosity, but nobody speaks. This is very unusual for you up until now, and you have only had minimal contact with others. Most of them are male, like you, but a few of them are female. Soon the silence comes to an end when a dark-skinned woman walks into the room. She has long hair and sharp features. One thing you notice is that despite her long hair covering her ears, you can still see that the tips of them are pointed. She must be elven, but in the pictures you've seen in books, you've never seen one with dark skin before. Lady voice, here we go. Hello, children, and congratulations on maintaining dignified silence during your time by yourselves. It's nice to see that your previous human minders aren't totally incompetent. Still, if you were Svelk children, you would have been much better trained by now. That was a struggle. But it is not my place to dwell on the limitations of the lesser born. I am merely here to oversee your training into proper Eternals so that you may serve the Emperor to your fullest capabilities. Now, before we begin, I suggest you all ask questions now, because this will probably be the only time I will be in the mood for your ignorance. For a moment, nobody speaks, but when the elven lady insists, one brave soul raises their hand. Yes, you. Are you an elf? Yes, I am. While the ignorant would use the vulgar term dark elf to describe me, my kind are more properly known as the Svelk. In fact, we are the purest of the elven race. All others you may have the misfortune of meeting are merely diluted members of our bloodline. They are truly pitiful creatures, really only fit for extermination. Remember this. Yes, you. What is your name? Different person. What is your name? What is your name? My name is unimportant, but you and the rest will always refer to me as Mistress. Failure to do so will earn my wrath, and more importantly, the wrath of the Emperor. Remember this. Yes, you. What will you teach us? Wait, they're kids. They're kids. I'm like, what will you teach us? What will you teach us? A second passes after the question when a small bolt of light from the Svelg's fingertips when a small bolt of light shoots from the Svelg's fingertips and hits the child in the chest asking the question. He falls backwards out of his chair and onto the floor. The rest of you jump in your own chairs and look back at him. He's breathing very erratically. I will teach you to obey my commands when I give them, Mistress shouts. She then warns the rest of you. Don't you dare touch him, let alone help him. And here I thought you lot had been trained better. It occurs to me that I will have to be extra strict in my discipline. As to the question about what I will teach you to be warriors. I will teach you to be wizards if you display the talent. I will teach you to shed yourselves of weakness. I will teach you to serve the Emperor without question and kill without mercy, and you will always obey, for you will find strength in obedience. You will find joy in order. You will find love in murder. You shall be instruments of terror and genocide if he so wishes it. You will be eternals, or you will die. Remember this. After the mistress's speech, the child she struck down eventually struggles back up and gets back in his seat, clutching his chest and still wheezing. I trust you have learned your lesson. Yes, mistress, he gasps. I just finished a series of books where I was like, I talked like this the whole time, so sometimes I slip into this accent. I'm going to try not to. Good. Now one more question before we begin. You there, what is your question? Speak up. Mistress demands while pointing at you, though you had not raised your hand. You don't wish to disagree with Mistress, so you stumble and try to think up a question. I was just wondering, when will you teach us to fight? Fight, Mistress? Mistress raises an eyebrow and gives a smirk as she approaches you. Fight? And what makes you think that you are even ready to learn yet? Do you have even the slightest knowledge of combat tactics? No, Miss... Before you can even complete the sentence, Mistress knocks you out of your chair with a quick jab with her hand. The pain from your face spreads to your chest when Mistress steps on it with her boot. She digs into you and presses all her weight on it, while the rest of your class looks on. Damn right. No, you don't. You weren't even alert enough to anticipate my attack. You let me get in close, and now look at you. You're completely at my mercy. I am in a position to do whatever I like with you, while you are only in a position to beg or die. So, what will it be, worm? Are you going to beg for your miserable life, or should I save the Empire's time and money by killing you now? So, I kind of want to see what die does. Will I just die? Oh. Or is it a trick? Sometimes it's a trick. I see that there's a third person, but I wonder if it's my fiance. Third person, if you're there, if there's actually somebody watching, ball's in your court. You have a minute to give me an answer. Otherwise, I'm going to say die, because I want to know what it does. And then I'll just press back if I die, because I'm not restarting. And they left. Gone. Okay, well, I'm clicking die, because they bailed on me. Is it over? It's not over. Huh. Oh, yeah, I would have picked struggle if I wasn't so curious. I wanted to struggle. Can you go back? Uh-oh. What have I done? Christ. Okay. Years later. Struggle, that's the one I wanted. I'm not dying. I was just curious. So note to self, don't go back. You can save, though. Maybe you can't. Okay. Alright, I'll finish struggle. And then call it quits for the day. The pain is great, and you want it to be over with as quickly as possible, but you know to beg for mercy would be shameful, and you don't want to die, so you desperately try to push her boot off of you. Naturally, you are unsuccessful, and this response only enrages her further. Insolent fool! I said beg or die! Those were your choices, and you dare defy my orders! Mistress exclaims and takes her boot off of your chest, only to begin kicking and stomping on you. You try to escape, but she bends down and roughly picks up by the collar. Don't you dare try to run while I discipline you! You will obey! Mistress says while slapping your face at intervals of her verbal abuse. Finally, she throws you back to the floor. Now get back in your seat and never defy me again! Your life is nothing. All of your lives are nothing. Your lives will never be anything more than warm bodies to serve the Emperor, and you will not even be able to live up to that honored status if you do not learn obedience. Remember this. At this point, you stagger back in your seat, aching all over. It hurts a lot, but despite the beating, you don't feel fear. Instead, you feel anger. Anger at Mistress, certainly, but more at yourself for being so powerless. Time passes by under the harsh guidance of Mistress. She teaches you all that she promised she would, and then some. Your lessons are not only that of a combat nature, but of an academic one as well. You wouldn't be aware of it, but you and your classmates are probably much better educated than other children your age. As for you, Mistress rides you the hardest for defying her. There are more than several times where she basically pits the rest of the class against you during the combat training sessions. You suffer horrible beatings most of the time, but eventually you adapt and manage to hold your own until Mistress finds yet another way to make the fight unfair. Sounds like Ender's Game. You are obedient and follow the orders of Mistress, but internally you are harboring thoughts of resentment, hatred, and defiance towards her. And so what if you are? She isn't the Emperor. That's the only person you really have to revere. Your personality doesn't go unnoticed by your instructor and watchers. They make note of it and decide how you should be handled in the next step of your training. Year 12. You are in a room by yourself, sitting in a chair. Everyone else in your class has been separated for reasons unknown to you. All you know right now is Mistress is speaking with a well-dressed man. They are speaking about you, but not actually speaking to you. Ah. So, just this one, are you sure? The well-dressed man asks. Should be thankful you even have that. The last pathetic batch of humans you had me train didn't even survive, let alone get this far. However, this one is the closest for your purposes, though by Svelk standards he would be put in the slave pits and the rest of your so-called Eternals would be killed for their poor performance. Mistress mocks. Yes, and that's why your own society is doing so well now. No, we will still find uses for the others, perhaps as military officers or even members of the Shadow Guard, and they will still be of great service to the Emperor. Still, I wish we had more than just one. Oh well, he will have to do. We will improve the results of the Eternal program with the next group. At this point, Mistress begins laughing. Is something amusing? Yes, it is. Extremely. You humans and your grand schemes that hold on to power, do you really believe that this Eternal program of yours is going to make a difference? Potential external threats are the Potential external threats are the least of your concerns. Your empire is rotting from within you. Your empire is rotting from within, and your territory is succumbing to... Your territory is succumbing to chaos every day. And I suppose you would be an expert on such things, seeing as your own people experienced this millennia ago and still haven't even managed to rebuild a cohesive, unified government again, while your so-called lesser cousins have thrived. My people were conquering this world and more, while yours were still bumbling around trying to figure out how to make fire like the pack of monkeys you evolved from. And our rulers were the gods themselves, not petty dictators who think they are. Yes, and again I ask, what are your people doing now? They're a race of scattered mercenaries, selling their services to the highest bidders with no sense of loyalty to anyone but to themselves. Speaking of which, you are merely a guest within the Empire. While your services are valuable to us, if you speak ill of the Emperor again, you can always be replaced by another money whore of your kind. Mistress's eyes narrow, and she quickly grabs the man holding a dagger to his throat before speaking. Fortunately for you, this job is paying very well, for that is the only thing keeping me from slitting your throat. Never speak to me that way again, human. Now leave so that I may train this so-called Eternal. Oh, she says and releases him. The well-dressed man looks a bit shaken up, but he composes himself. You will keep me apprised of his progress on a weekly basis, and this incident will not be forgotten. Be forgotten, he says and walks quickly out of the room. At this point, Mistress turns to you, and you fully expect to receive a beating, but instead she questions you. So, what did you think of that little exchange? It is not my place to give an opinion on the debates of my superiors. I am merely here to be trained by you so that I may better serve the Emperor, you say. Yes, very nice, safe and boring answer, but what do you really think? I order you to tell me. You pause to gather your thoughts and then speak. I think it is odd that you are not an Empire citizen and hold no loyalty to him, yet you are training me, mistress. Yes, very well, it is an odd situation, but not an uncommon one. You will find that many make compromises in life. But, mistress, how can you tell me to believe in something that you yourself do not believe in? It's easy. I'm just saying what they would have me say. What do I care? I'm profiting greatly from this, and at the end of the day, I'm the one coming out ahead. But I think you need a better example than me, a more personal one, namely yourself. Need a drink. Oops, I started trying to record again, but I'm streaming. You look confused before Mistress continues. You hate me. I know you do not deny it. You don't want to put up with me, yet you obey my commands without question. Why? Because you are my superior, mistress, and you've been paid to train me by the Emperor. Ah, so if I was training you, and the Emperor was not involved, you would still obey my commands? Perhaps I would, mistress, since I would most likely be killed by you if I didn't obey, as you are far more skilled than I am. I would obey until there was a way to somehow kill you or even escape. Interesting. So you would compromise your beliefs. You didn't think about it like that, but you quickly think up a retort. No, mistress, I do not believe it would be a compromise. I would be ensuring my survival so that I may serve the Emperor longer. Ha! If you say so. But tell me, does the revelation that not everyone praises your Emperor discourage or shake your own loyalty to him? No, mistress. Why not? You surely know that all of this is propaganda. You've never even met your Emperor. He could be an idiotic cripple for all you know. It doesn't matter, mistress. I wouldn't even be here if it not for him. I am being trained to be an eternal, something he himself ordered. Because of that, I already know I have been given the highest honor and a better chance than most. I owe this training, this loyalty, and this life to him, regardless of what others might think. Mistress just nods at your answer. There's no sneer or smirk in her face this time. She has perhaps a look of semi-respect for you. Very well. Let us begin your training, Eternal. ... We will continue this, another day. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe I'll be busy tomorrow, but I'll be back. I assure you, because this was fun. Aside from all the burps and sweating. But hey, subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Subscribe to that. If you're watching it on Twitch, subscribe to that. Do all the things that make algorithms work. If you're watching this on YouTube and you want to watch it on Twitch, go to Twitch and subscribe. The link's probably in the description. If I'm not an idiot. Eh? Awesome. Thank you for listening. And later, Gators. I look into the mic and then I have to look away to click stop streaming. I should have prepared it. Hang on. Later, Gators.